Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the seasonal Discharge. Today I'm joined by Coco, or Tamika likes to draw.
Hello, I am here.
Today we are doing what is this, the spring season?
Yeah, it says spring on the document.
Oh,
Oh, I'm looking at the
it's,
wrong document. I'm looking at the previous one.
no, it's summer, okay. Today we are doing the summer season. And the first show we're going to be talking about is Isekai Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I assume you don't want to talk about this one, Coco.
Nah, you can leave this one.
I mean, there there really wasn't that much to talk about. If you're unfamiliar with the Suicide Squad, it's a DC superhero thing where it's a bunch of villain
It's
prisoners
an
that,
it's an anti-hero task force comprised
yeah,
of supervillains.
they force a bunch of supervillains, namely Harley Quinn and Clayface and some others, to work together with like bombs in their necks so they can do stuff. That's the
Yeah.
premise of Suicide Squad.
I think the original version was that they were created as a contingency against the Justice League, or more specifically, Superman.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and everyone's like, huh, I don't see how a clown or a jester with a bat is gonna be Superman, but go off Walker, or Waller rather. But anyways, sorry, go on.
So basically, they took that and they were like, but what if it was an isekai?
Yeah,
So it's like the same basic setup of like we see Harley Quinn get captured and then Amanda Waller, is that the name of the
yeah, Amanda
yeah.
Waller. She's like in every Suicide Squad related project ever, because I guess she's the one who founded them in the comics too.
They're like doing some sort of experiment to open a portal, and I guess she's like, we need some expendable people to send through the portal. So she puts together the Suicide Squad and sends them through the portal, and then they
Yeah, I didn't realize this was gonna be like an origin. Like it's an AU where the Suicide Squad is founded for this purpose,
yeah.
rather than the
Yeah,
Suicide Squad
they
or
they
already being a thing.
teased at the end of the episode that Poison Ivy was gonna be like from the fantasy world.
I mean, it's either that or that she ended up there somehow in the past or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
I think it would make sense though to make her from the fantasy world.
yeah.
And then they fight some gnolls or something.
That was that was an episode.
It
I
was
mean,
so slow.
I mean, this show is basically just like a series. Remember the other day how I was talking about how it would be kind of neat if we got like more Western animated interpretations of anime because of that one post where they did like Jujutsu Kaisen in Tartakovsky's art style.
Oh yeah, that was
This
cool.
is this is like a continuation of, I mean, this meme is like kind of dead. It hasn't been a thing for a while, but this is just like one of like several like anime that have been made based on like Western properties. There's like Marvel Tactics or whatever the fuck it's called, where it's like a card thing, uh, and it has like that really sexy anime Carol Danvers that everyone likes. Or like I think more appropriately, because I think that one is basically like a typical Marvel story just with an anime art style. More appropriately, it's more like that one Ninja Turtles anime they made where they decided to make it a mecha for some reason. Because mecha was the thing back then and isekai is the thing now. So it's like, well, what if we did Suicide Squad, but if we we did an isekai with them? Yeah, that's
I have to wonder how many like actual Japanese creatives were involved in the making of this idea, or if it was all just like some dude in a boardroom being like, "Well, anime is big with the kids these days."
I was looking at the staff of this, and the producers are all like Western people, although this was produced by Warner Brothers Japan, and the script writers are Japanese.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna assume if this was something that might have been like conceptualized by Westerners and then they like passed it off to Japanese people to do it, make it feel as authentic as possible.
Well, I will say that the art style does look like that Western trying to like generically looking like an anime, but it's like 10 years out of date now art
What,
style.
like Voltron?
No, not like Voltron. It's like when a show, I mean, it's almost like the Boondocks. It's like
Yeah.
when a American, because Voltron is a Korean studio. I feel like Voltron just looks like a Korean show to me.
It looks
But
like it gives me like the Last Airbender vibes.
yeah, which is also animated by a Korean
Yeah.
studio. But
Hmm.
this is more like when like a Western show is like, we're gonna be like an anime. Or like what's the one that Jaden Smith?
Oh, the Toblerone, the Neo
Yeah,
Yokio or something.
yeah, Neo Yokio, that sounds right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that.
But that was done by an actual Japanese studio, right?
It's not about the studio. It's about
Oh, it's
like
about the art style.
yeah, it's about the
Okay.
art style they're looking for. It's like rather than coming out of any sort of like
Hmm.
either just making it look like, the standard, they're not even thinking about it, which is
Hmm.
what a lot of anime do, or like, actually having a creative vision.
Yeah.
It's like specifically, I want to look like what Westerners think an anime looks like.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily get that vibe. Um, I mean, it did look standard. I will agree there. Well, standard in some ways, but there were some parts that I thought looked pretty good, especially like
Yeah.
the action sequences.
It was well animated,
Yeah.
for the record.
Yeah, like the action sequences were decent. They were decent. Which isn't that surprising because I do believe the director of this, I mean this is not comparable, but the director of this did work on JJK. So, you know, makes sense. He did
Yeah.
episode directing on JJK. It wasn't
I'm
like
gonna wait, I'm gonna say something that will piss everyone off. It looked better than Chainsaw Man.
fucking hell. That's crazy. Oh yeah, okay, I have the list here. So the director is a guy called Ari Osada, and he worked on JJK, JoJo, Kill la Kill, and Full Metal Alchemist. Most of which, this show doesn't look quite as good as those shows, but well, I mean, I haven't seen Full Metal Alchemist, but I mean, it explains why the show doesn't look terrible, I guess.
Yeah, it looks good. I
Yeah.
was mostly just complaining about
Mm.
the art style.
Although the character designer, this is something that kind of surprised me. The character designer is a guy called Akira Amano, who I guess is just like the main character designer for the Psycho-Pass franchise. Because I was looking at his profile and like doing character designs for Psycho-Pass is like the only thing that's on this guy's profile. So, yeah.
Well, the character designs, I wouldn't say I liked them.
Well, the character designs in this, well, this whole thing in general, like excluding like the isekai part. I feel like I get some Snyderverse influence from
Oh
this
my
a
God, the
little bit.
Joker's design is so bad.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Jared Leto. Harley's design reminds me a little bit of what's her name? Barbie.
Well, Harley's design just looks ripped straight from like the Suicide Squad movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say that like a lot of this really does feel Snyderverse influenced. And I'm wondering if that's intentional or not, or I mean it probably is.
No,
I
it
mean what
has to be because like literally it is just the costume, I feel like.
yeah. I mean, one other thing, I don't know if this was intentional, but one other thing that did kind of sound Snyderversey was
Oh yeah. They just pulled out the Wonder Woman theme in the middle of it.
yeah, there's a scene where like Harley Quinn is like kicking ass in a bar, and then like a theme starts playing that sounds an awful lot like Wonder Woman's theme from the Snyderverse. The only thing it's missing is the
Yeah.
But yeah, this feels like it does take a bit of influence from Snyder, which is a very well, I mean, I Snyder didn't work on those movies, but like they're set in the Snyder universe, which
Is a
interesting
choice.
interesting universe to take influence from. I mean, yeah, I don't know, it's weird, especially considering the fact that the Snyderverse is like over and we're going into the Gun verse now. Oh wait, the Peacemaker design is from the Gun movie, but I don't know if the Gun Suicide Squad movie, but I don't know if that movie's is that movie in the Gun verse in the universe that new Superman movie is coming out in? I don't fucking know. Uh,
I think it is.
yeah,
I mean,
is
surely it is because they're making a season 2 of Peacemaker.
oh, but at the end of the well, we're getting kind of sidetracked now, but at the end of the first season, you see the Snyderverse Justice League people with like Flash and Jason Momoa
I
yeah,
don't know. They really fucked up with the whole reboot thing already. It hasn't
yeah.
even happened yet, and they already messed it up.
Yeah, I guess we can briefly touch upon the fact that we did watch this dubbed. What did
Yeah.
you think about the voice acting?
Um, I thought, well, it honestly wasn't the worst dub I've seen. Like, I wasn't
Hmm.
really cringing at it, but
Yeah.
it was impressive how lame and generic. Like the first thing I thought when we switched it over to the dub was, wait, the Joker just sounds like a normal anime boy.
Yeah.
He's just doing the voice.
He doesn't sound like Mark Hamill or Troy Baker
He's just doing this voice. You
or
know.
like any iconic Joker voice. But I don't think with that being said, I don't think like a typical take Joker take would really like work with this version of the character because I mean, he's clearly like way younger than how Joker is
He's
usually
so
depicted.
lame. Oh my God. He
Yeah.
kept going on about the most stupid bullshit. It was like
Yeah.
he was just spouting nonsense that was like very pretentious.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally like J it's Leto's fucking Joker because he would say some shit like, "We live in a society."
No, that's just giving him too much credit. I feel like he also feels like Suicide Squad, like
But
Snyder versus Joker,
yeah,
of
that's
like,
Leto's Joker. Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize, my bad.
Yeah. The the original Suicide Squad. I don't think Joker appears in the Gun
I
one.
was getting him confused with what's the actor that's in The Dark Knight?
I do not remember, but
I
I
was
know which
thinking
one
you
you're
were
talking
talking
about.
about that guy. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes more sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's like very melodramatic. Like he that version of the Joker is so uncool because it feels very performative. Like he
Hmm.
really cares what people think of him and he's trying too hard.
I wanted to check out the dub because I was curious on whether or not they would bring in Tara Strong for this because it kind of seems like Tara Strong is like the definitive. Well, I mean, if you ask most people, they'll be like, no, Arlene Sorkin, who voiced, you know, Harley in like the show that she debuted in. But like as of recently, like Tara Strong is the one who usually gets cast to voice Harley in basically everything. I believe she's the one voicing her in the Harley Quinn show, Queen. Um, and
Queen.
she is not voicing her in this, which is totally fine. You can have a new voice actress, but I don't like this voice actress at all. She's trying to do the accent that Harley normally has, but she's also doing like generic anime girl voice at the same time.
She did it for like 30 seconds and then she just kind of dropped it and was mostly just doing the generic anime girl voice. But then like
Right.
sometimes it had just come out like a little bit, like just for one line read, she like remembered that she's supposed to have a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah,
She was the worst voice actor, I'd say, in this whole show. She single-handedly brought down the whole thing.
but you liked Will Smith's voice actor or his delivery of that one line.
Well, it might have been. I don't even know if that was ironically or not that I like that, but I did look. What was the line? He's he. I just remember he said, "You bitch."
Amanda Waller, you bitch.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
pretty good. That was the best part of this episode.
yeah. But other than that, I mean, the only thing I'm willing to say is I'm usually somewhat critical of how rinse and repeat and generic like a lot of isekai can be. And I can kind of see how like splicing in Western comic book superheroes might make it feel a little less so. I just don't know if that concept can like hold my attention for however long this series is.
I mean, yeah, it didn't feel like a regular isekai, at least from the first episode. But the second
Yeah.
episode did look pretty. I mean, it's just so slow. It's like they didn't have an idea, so they're just stalling for time.
Like they just had the basic concept and that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mid.
I did appreciate that it felt like they put in a little bit more thought into it than I would have expected out of such a creatively bankrupt idea. I think that the Joker's car brought this up single-handedly for me from like a 4 to a 6.
The keyboard car.
Yeah, he had a car with like a piano on the dashboard and he like moved it around by playing the piano. That was pretty epic.
Yeah.
That was a very funny idea that I appreciated. But yeah, mostly of it was pretty mid.
Go watch like the first two seasons of Harley Quinn, and then stop when Harley Quinn and um Ivy start engaging in cheating.
I think like the first season is the only good one.
Yeah,
I think the moment they get in a relationship is like, what the hell? That just came out of absolutely nowhere.
yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a hinting here and there, but I mean, I knew it was gonna happen because they put it in the fucking comics, so
They had no chemistry, zero chemistry.
yeah. Well, I know a lot of people complain about the fact that Ivy has kind of just been relegated to being Harley's girlfriend in the franchise as of late, um,
Yeah.
which kind of makes me curious about where they're gonna go with this if Ivy is seemingly the true antagonist as as assuming they're setting it up to be.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, enough Western shows talk. This is an anime podcast. Moving on.
Yes. Anime is not, well, actually it is, but anime is not a Western colloquialism.
Next is plus sized elf. And since you're such a big fan of this one, Coco, I think you should be the one to summarize it.
Hogs. That's it. That's the summary. No, I'm kidding.
I mean,
Uh,
you're not wrong.
so this is an anime about a girl who well was it like a massage parlor? Was that what it was? Or like a general health fitness thing? I wasn't
Yeah, I think it must have been because he was like helping her diet and stuff. It
yeah,
wasn't just a massage.
yeah. So this is a girl who's gotten like really insecure about the amount of weight that she's gained all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but like over time of being in Japan. And she approaches main character guy, whose name I did not get. I don't even know if we even got the name. Uh,
He's a very nice and handsome young man.
and as they're talking, oh, well, not actually as they're talking,
She comes in like in total full disguise. She's wearing like sunglasses and a mask and a
and a hat
beanie.
that literally says human. Just to be like,
Well,
guys,
well, yeah. I mean,
on no certain terms, guys, I am human. I mean, look, even my hat says human on
you don't wear a human hat, Coco. Are you not
it.
human?
Well, listen, if I go in sundown towns, they don't think I'm human. So anyway,
True.
uh, Yeah, no. So it turns out that this girl is an elf, hence plus-sized elf, or the Japanese name, which is Elf-san Warudai or something, I forget. The reason why she wants to lose weight is because, well, actually, at first I thought it was because she was just really insecure to go back to her world, having put on all this weight because she's worried about how she'd be judged for it.
That's how she made it sound
But then
at
I
first.
guess I guess it just turns out that she literally can't go back to her world if she's fat because the
The portal requires you to be the same weight you were when you came through.
oh, they say so if you came in fat, then it would let you leave fat.
Yeah.
I thought the portal was just fat phobic.
So actually, she just has to get fat in her world, and this problem would be solved.
Wait, that's actually a good point. Well, I mean, I imagine her like not wanting to be judged for being fat in her world is still like a factor since they she briefly said that.
But she sure didn't seem to care talking to the guy. She seemed pretty totally happy being fat as
Well,
long as she can eat
she
French
doesn't
fries.
care what lowly humans think. She only cares what her fellow prestige, high aristocratic elf peers think. Um, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I guess this meme doesn't really work because you told me that it actually is still quite possible to gain a lot of weight on Japanese food. But I was just thinking, like, if she put on this much weight after getting isekai'd to Japan, just imagine how much weight she'd gain if she got isekai'd to fucking the United States. I think she'd die of a heart attack
Nah,
within
I
like a
mean, I
fucking.
think Japan, like, they've got a lot of fast food type stuff is the thing. You can eat pretty unhealthy there. But
Yeah,
in Elfsan's case, we literally see she has like a pile of French fries. She ordered like 20 large fries at McDonald's.
she's obsessed with them, and in all the marketing for this show, she like always has fries in her mouth,
Yes.
kind of like in my banner.
The
Uh,
picture that we just associate with our old acquaintance still, because that used to be his avatar.
So I kind of assumed to some extent that this show would be about like a girl trying to like manage her weight and like stay in shape. I've seen like panels from this manga where she's like constantly checking her weight and she's like, "Oh my God, I've relapsed so bad. I've fucking gone up to like 10 billion."
Thought the whole premise was gonna be her like trying to lose the weight, and then everything they do ends up failing at the end of the episode. But
Yeah,
no, she immediately lost all the weight.
yeah.
She lost the weight like 5 minutes in.
She has very mixed metabolism. She loses weight fast and she gains it back fast as well.
I assume she has a perfectly fine metabolism. It's just the fact that, even if you have a good metabolism, you can't eat.
20 fucking fried.
Yeah, you can't eat
Right.
20 large fries from McDonald's every day and not get fat.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say is that even though I kind of like knew like the general idea of this show, one thing well, actually, I suppose it still remains to be seen, but I'm assuming that this show is gonna be a harem. I'm assuming. I did not know that there was a male protagonist in this, or that it would become like a harem at all. Which I feel, I mean, I don't know how you felt about the main character, but it kind of speaks to, the main character himself being like maybe a little bit bland. I don't know. I mean, I don't really hear fans of this story talk about the MC. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean,
But I
I
mean,
agree. I just assumed it would just be about the elf.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like kind of a generically nice guy.
hmm
He's not meant to be like a
The
complex character.
the vessel for which we get to ogle the body of this big, voluptuous
Yeah.
elf character.
Yeah, they do show bare tits in
Yeah,
this, by the way. A lot. Like most
this
of the
show,
episode.
I mean, to start with, even before you see bare titties, this show is not hesitant to do like a ton of boob shots and just boing, boing, boom,
I
boing.
did think it was very funny when her shirt just exploded off her body because she's so thick.
Yeah, God, she's perfect. But I was gonna say on the subject of this show being uncensored and having bare titties in it, I'm actually starting to notice that there actually does seem to be an uptick in fan service shows that just do that, that just show nudity, which,
Yeah.
in the past was like not really a thing. I mean, you had your Shin Maimano testaments, or like if you want to go even further back, you had like your high school DxDs. But like it's not like it wasn't like super common for fan service shows to show this much. You just get the panty shot, the thigh shot, the cleavage shot, etc. But now, I guess anime directors are just like, you know what? What if we just showed girls naked? What if we just showed them naked?
One of these days, the arrow genre is going to be completely dead and it's just going to be porn.
Because, you had like what is it? Even Inukai-san's dog had like full-blown nudity in it as well, or like various other shows. It's becoming a whole thing, and I imagine some people who are fans of the ecchi genre might have some mixed feelings about that because some people, prefer tasteful lewds to just full-blown nudity. So you might be someone who prefers the panty shot or the peek into the boob window of the girl's
I
outfit.
feel
This
like the
sounds so
panty
fucking
shot, to me, the panty shot feels less tasteful than just showing it.
just showing full-blown nudity.
Yeah, like the panty shot is like, that feels like I'm creeping on the person versus nudity is just like, okay, we're just doing lewd stuff.
I mean, that's usually what is actually happening because like the main character will be shown like leering at the girl, whereas like in this, it's just like a thing that is happening. In fact, Elf-san herself seems to have a very casual attitude when it comes to being naked, actually. Because like when
Yeah,
her
she did not. She was totally ready to just take off her shirt. And the guy was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
And then when her clothes ripped off, the guy was just like, "I'm gonna get you some new clothes," and she's just like, "I
Well, I
okay."
guess, elves live in nature. Maybe
Hmm.
that's just normal for her. Uh, I mean, it was okay. It was only 10 minutes, the first episode.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wait, actually, there is one thing I forgot to mention on the subject of this show being willing to show nudity and stuff. The mangaka of Elf-san, um, actually is a hentai doujin artist.
oh,
That is one thing I forgot to
interesting.
mention. Yeah. I did not know that until I, was looking at the at at his works on his Annulus profile a couple months back. So that would probably explain why the fan service in this is a bit more explicit than normal.
That does make me more curious about what the manga looks like. Because I will say, it didn't, the show did not look that good. Like,
Yeah,
it was pretty,
it was
it,
okay.
it was like pretty still, pretty
Hmm.
panning shots.
Pretty still not.
It felt pretty moving manga. I mean, there was a little when the boobs came out, there was a little bit of animation, but
It's not that surprising that the animation in this is not that great because I looked up the studio and this is the second show that they've ever made in the entire time that they've existed. And their work before this is literally a hentai
the
called,
I almost said it kind of looks like a hentai, so
it's literally a hentai called Fucked My Best Friend, and it's a yaoi hentai.
go.
Oh, and the studio is called Elias
I mean,
Studio.
that's pretty base, but at the same time, I think this manga deserves a better studio. They should have
Hmm.
given this to like Madhouse or Trigger.
Or like the people who did at the very least the people who did Harem Labyrinth or the people who did Mata, but I can't
Yeah,
remember who
that's
did.
true. Harem
Yeah.
Labyrinth looked pretty good.
Oh, and I guess since I've mentioned the studio, I might as well mention the director. The director is a guy called Toshikatsu Tokoro, and I actually found his history of works to be somewhat interesting because, well, he directed episodes of Tony Kawaii and Mysterious Girlfriend X, which uh, I mentioned last part as an example of a romance show everyone should go watch. But he also did the Greed Island arc of Hunter x Hunter, the original, which is
Oh.
interesting, and Trigun. Basically, this guy has worked on like a lot of, I guess you could say, respected
Yeah,
shows.
that's more like it. Someone fitting of the status of this manga.
Yeah, it's funny because he actually hasn't worked on that many like fan servicey shows, which is kind of funny. Well, I guess Tony
He
Kawai has
must have
stopped,
been a true believer. He must have read Elfson and been
and it
like,
was
"Oh,
like,
hell yes."
this is this is what my life's work has been building up to.
Yes. But what I was saying earlier about the time is like, I feel like if it's really fortunate they made it 10 minutes because they could have stretched this into a 20-minute episode and it would have been so boring. But the fact that it was 10 minutes made it like,
Probably depends on how they'd approach it, like how many chapters per episode they do.
but I thought just like what they covered was, I mean, I wouldn't call it a fast pace. There were definitely like some comedic moments that didn't land as hard as they could have if they'd been a little bit faster. But
Yeah,
it wasn't like agonizingly slow. It was just normal, kind of mild pace, you know.
yeah. I mean, basically like almost like your average slice of life, kind of. And it do have those vibes like a little bit, so which is kind of a problem because I find slice of life to be kind of boring. But listen, if it's about puns, I can sit through any slice of life anime literally ever. So yeah, and also Elf-san, she feels insecure about going back to her world. Fuck her world. She's perfect as a big voluptuous. All I want to do is see her turn into a giant woman. Let her eat her let her eat her fries, and she should fuck her world and come live with me instead. 10 out of 10.
It's kind of hard to rate this. Like, I feel like usually when I give something a six, I'm basically saying like this is shit. But I also feel like a seven would be a little bit too generous for this.
6.5.
Yeah, strong six to a light seven. But also, I am a little bit curious about the manga. I would be willing to check out the manga, but I don't think
I
I'd watch more of the
I have not read the manga, but I have read some of his dojins.
anime. Well, there you go.
You know, this being animated by a well, I don't know if it is a straight up hentai studio or if they're like trying to pivot away from that now. Kind of makes me wonder where this manga's going. I feel like if it did go into hentai territory, I would have known about that. But it's possible. You never know.
Good Omen.
I find this character, the elf son, extremely relatable because she obviously I myself am a bit of a fat fuck, and I so relate to the idea of going out and being like, I'm gonna go for like a walk or like for a jog, and then I'm just like, but what if I just like bought Cheetos while I do this with like a Lucozade? And and just made it completely pointless. I wish I had someone like main character guy who would slap the fucking Cheetos out of my hand and be like, "What the fuck are you doing? You went out to lose weight. Stop eating the fucking Cheetos."
I am the literal opposite of that. I'm extremely skinny and I have to go out of my way to eat a healthy amount. I do like food though, but I can I can pretty much eat as much as I want and I will not gain weight. I have
I
never gained weight in my life.
I envy that so much, I can't lie.
Yeah, I mean I prefer it.
I wanted to say that I also find it funny that her rationale for her allowing herself to relapse is she can just lose the weight whenever she wants to because she's done it before.
That is very concerning. That I am very worried for this elf's health.
Well, it's funny because I mean, it's funny because there are athletes who are like that. Like when they're like between breaks, they do like let themselves get out of shape. Like especially like boxers, they do let themselves get out of shape, and then when like their next match is like a couple months away, that's when they start grinding again. Because they know they've done it multiple times in like their career, so they actually know.
Yeah, I guess if they can speed run it.
Most people definitely wouldn't be able to do that, so
Yeah.
I don't recommend that. Don't do that.
I think she will though. I think she's gonna get skinny and get fat again in like every episode. Either that or she's just gonna be permanently fat from now on. Next up is Alya sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. Do you want to summarize this one or should I?
There was something to summarize.
There's a story to this show.
This anime is another addition to that genre of anime. We actually haven't seen an addition to this genre in a very long time,
Oh
which
yeah.
is guy meets girl with gimmick
Yeah.
and his life gets spruced up by girl with gimmick.
Yeah, mildly spruced up.
Yes, mildly spruced up. And the gimmick in this show is that she hides her feelings, as the name suggests, with the language Russian.
Yeah. So the main character of this, Masachka, Ma Masa Masa Masachka is when he was like a wee lad, he met a a little Russian girl and he was so down bad for this Russian girl that he learned to speak Russian specifically so he could speak with her.
That is pretty down bad.
Yeah. And now, as a middle first year high school student, apparently, he meets this girl, Alya, who I guess is also a Russian girl, but like a different Russian girl. And yeah, whenever she like her internal monologue, she just says it out loud in Russian. So she's all the time saying like, "Oh, cute," or like, "Oh man, I want to kiss him so bad," or "I want
Or I
him
think
to."
he's fucking stupid.
No, she never really insults him. She he'll say like, "Oh, what did you say?" And she'll be like, "Oh, I called you a dumbass." But then what she actually said was like, "Oh, like I want to lick the sweat off his body."
She's basically a tsundere, kind of.
Yeah. But the gimmick kind of is that like he knows Russian and he feels too awkward to say anything at this point.
Hmm.
So it's like a tsundere, but he gets to hear her internal monologue as she's doing
I
as
get to hear
tsunderes
you
do.
dressing me down with your mouth out
Yeah.
loud in a different language.
Okay. Can we just acknowledge this gimmick is not interesting enough to carry a show?
I mean, I think a lot of the time the gimmick is just sort of is not even really like the plot, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes it is. I mean, I didn't get very far in Dress Up Darling, but like sometimes it will revolve around the gimmick, like Dress Up Darling. But like, I haven't seen like what's it called, the Mute Girl show. I haven't seen that show, but I'm assuming that doesn't revolve around her being like mute. So like,
It kind of does.
well, I guess.
Comey can't communicate, or
Yeah,
Omusho in Japanese. Yeah.
but like I tend to assume that like it's not just revolved around the gimmick the whole time and that there's other
I
things actually going on.
I mean there are other things going on. I mean in Komi Can't Communicate, the like second premise of that show is that everyone at their school is like a weird eccentric person in some way or another.
Hmm.
But
Well, that sounds more interesting than this.
yeah, it is. I think this part of why. So, okay. First, to like get it out of the way, in this show's defense, we both knew going in this isn't really either of our types of show. Like this sort of kind of slow slice of lifey, just having some
So
characters.
fucking, this is like some fucking girl I liked forgot her glasses type shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if Mr. Thick was here, he would be writing this show.
Yeah,
But I think the issue with it, beyond that, I'm sure there are some people, I'm sure there are plenty of people who have the capacity to enjoy this. But honestly, my problem is less with the kind of show it is. I think it's more that a lot of comedy anime have the same issue that when they adapt their manga, they like slow the pacing way down and it just completely kills every joke. That's kind of the sense I got watching some of the jokes in this. It's like well, that could have been funny if it was a four panel manga instead of
a lot of the time it's meant to be like a throwaway joke that you're not even really supposed to pay attention to, but you can if you want to. Like, you know, when they have that small line of dialogue that's not in a speech bubble type of thing?
yeah.
It affects the pacing a little bit when they actually put that in the anime version.
Well, I don't think it's just that because I think of like the comparison of like there's two comedy anime that I can think of as like the two different up ends of the spectrum on that. There's do you know that one with like the girl with the blue haired ponytail thing and it's like kind of sketchy? There's like
No,
that one clip of it where like she's buying a dojin and she like suplexes a police officer.
I am unfamiliar.
Nichijo.
That sounds familiar.
My Ordinary Life is apparently the name of it. So that shows like the slow end of the spectrum where every clip I've seen from that show is like one joke, but they draw the pacing out on it to where it feels like I'm watching an SNL gag.
Damn, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Psyche K. That show, I feel like, is a perfect example of how you should pace a comedy anime. Because in that show, it's not that they drop the jokes. They just they just come at you so fast that like you don't have time to get bored of any one joke. They're just like rapid fire hitting you with jokes so that like if one doesn't land, you're just already on to the next one.
Yeah,
I think that is how comedy anime should be implemented. But I guess that wouldn't result in as many episodes and therefore less money.
yeah, pretty much. I guess on the subject of comedy, I guess I could say that this anime feels pretty old school. We've got, well, the main character isn't really a perv, but we've got our accidental pervert
Oh
scene.
yeah, he touches her underwear, I think.
He accidentally grabs her by the pussy.
Yeah. But I mean, he was already like very sexually putting a sock on her foot, which can I just pat myself on the back for calling that was about to happen?
Well, you mentioned the fan service, but it's pretty clear, at least in the first episode, that there is an attempt to be somewhat conservative with how often they do those kinds of shots.
Well, yeah, it was weird. They like cut away from her feet, like they it was really detailed and well animated. You could tell like it was a foot fetish scene, but like the second she starts taking off the sock, it like cuts away for a second. They're like, "Whoa, we can't show too much there. This
Yeah.
ain't no
And there's also the part where they make a joke about how he saw her panties, but we don't see her panties.
no, we do see her panties.
Do
It's
we?
just yeah, it's just another shot that they like only show it for like half a second. But yeah, they showed it and it was like detailed.
The scene where she's walking past him after she just kicked him in the face?
Oh, no, I don't think we see like the from the floor shot, but you
Yeah.
do see them when he like his hand slips or whatever while putting on the sock.
Oh, because I was like, I didn't even notice that. So I was like, it's funny that they're talking about that, but they don't actually show that in
Yeah.
the show.
It's just funny though that like I agree that they were it seemed like they were trying not to show too much, but at the same time like the you can't have like a detailed shot of her bare feet and him putting a sock on her leg and
Hmm.
also try and be like, oh well, like we only showed it for 15 seconds, so like
I'm
it's
actually,
not actually a degenerate anime.
I want to look into whether or not this is the same studio that did Prism, Myriad Colors Phantom World or whatever, because I recall Trixie criticizing another show for doing that thing where they like do fan service, but they seem like almost ashamed of it in a way. So they always cut away before you like really see anything.
Yeah.
No, it's not the same studio, but I don't know. It's pretty funny. It's like I guess we'll do it since say it is based on the manga, which I'm not sure it is, but say it is. Oh, it's in the manga, so I guess we
No,
have to
I
do it.
think I think this is based on a manga because
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I saw it the other day while I was like scrolling through some manga site. I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, it's
Oh,
that one that's about to come out."
it's based on a light novel that also has a manga version.
No, it's definitely based on a manga because like I said, you can tell from the pacing. It feels like they're adapting like four panel jokes, but
Hmm.
then they adapt it into like a minute bit. Also, the feet thing reminds me that like it actually was like really well animated, but you were complaining
I
about
mean, this show in
the
general is pretty well animated. It's just really fucking, it's so fucking bright.
it's weird. It's like washed out almost. Like everything was it was like they got the lighting wrong, but it's an
Yeah.
anime, so like
The show that it reminded me of, yeah, I wrote down in my notes that it's kind of like a more refined version of something like Shikamori, because Shikamori kind of had a bright colors thing too, but it just wasn't as well animated as this.
no,
Uh,
that's what I'm saying. That I don't think this is a bright colors thing. Shikimori like was like
yeah,
colorful. That's more in the line of something like Dress Up Darling is a good version of that.
yeah,
Uh, which I know you also criticize as being a show that hurts your eyes, but
yeah,
this show is it's like washed out. Like everything looks pale because it's so bright. And like yeah, there is like a bloom effect on everything, but it doesn't hit the same because it's like white.
yeah. I actually had to, while I was watching this, I had to fucking lower like the flux on my computer to be able to handle it because
That is
I could
upsetting.
actively feel the cells in my fucking eyeballs getting destroyed, and I don't want to go blind. Uh,
Yeah, fair enough.
no, but other than that, the animation is pretty good, I'd
Yeah, it
say.
was well animated.
It's done by Doga Kobo, and they actually did do Shikimori. This is
Ah,
not just a cutie, but they've also done Oshinoko.
which
Uh,
looks a lot better than this. Wait, so
yeah.
that I guess they're just doing two shows this season because Oshinoko is also back this season.
Well, I mean, if you look at their catalog, they don't really do that many shows a year to begin with.
Hmm.
Which is probably why their shows tend to look pretty good because they're not overwhelming themselves.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that. Oh, and I think the director of this worked on both of those shows too, actually. He worked on Oshinoko and Shikamori, and Umaru-chan, but no one remembers Umaru-chan. So, but another thing that kind of caught my eye on this because I'm autistically obsessed with this company because they keep putting out shitty games is this anime was produced by Sega, which is weird. It's also produced by Kadokawa, but Kadokawa produces everything, so you know.
Interesting.
I didn't even know Sega produced like anime outside of things that they themselves made, like adaptations based off of their IPs. So I'm not entirely sure what the relation is there. This was another note. This was another note that I wrote, which I found kind of funny. Is pretty. This show reminds me of when I used to do this really stupid thing where I'd sometimes vent in Shona in a Discord server and someone would translate it with Google Translate. But then the difference between this show and that is that Google Translate fucking sucks ass. So you'd still barely be able to figure out what I'm saying. But it's
Well,
I understand the appeal of what this girl is doing because it is pretty fun to uh well I don't use it to dress down to undress someone right in front of them. I do that to talk shit. I'm just like, yeah, I'm fucking shitting on you in my fucking home.
so what she says she's doing.
What she says she's doing but is not actually doing.
Yeah.
And then when someone asks me what I said, I'm like, "Oh, I'm deeply in love with you and I want to." I'm like the opposite of this character. There you go.
It's interesting that we don't really know how the if like the guy reciprocates at all. You'd think he'd just confess to her if he knows she likes him, so
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if I mean he's definitely like awkward around her. But you can see that as just like teenagers being awkward about sexual stuff like they always do in
yeah.
anime. Whether or not he actually likes her romantically, we don't really know for sure. Although, with that being said, it's not uncommon for anime characters to know that they're mutually attracted to each other and still have the characters not confess. One show that I grew up watching, like Lavina, like these characters, like they knew that they were into each other for like the entire like second half of the series, and they don't get together until the OVA. And even then, it doesn't like really count because if you like read the manga, you find out that they're still like weird and wishy-washy about whether or not they're actually in a committed relationship.
Fuck me.
Like,
Just
like
mangaka learn to write people in a relationship challenge.
they don't like doing it. The only animes and manga that come to mind where they actually have the characters get into a relationship in like a rom-com and commit to it is like Mysterious Girlfriend X, which everyone should go read. Don't watch the anime, it's terrible. And His and Her Circumstances, aka Karekano. So we need. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there is, but that needs to be like more of a thing. It's just this weird thing where it's like, oh, the tension is whether or not they'll end up together. So if we actually have them get together, it'll be like the end of the story. And it's like it doesn't have to be that way. It
Yeah,
it really doesn't at all. But you know.
but that's harder. Harder to write.
And that's why fuck oh wait, no, I was gonna say fuck I forget what this manga is actually called, but the manga isn't actually about that. It isn't about romance. It's about making manga. So it actually does what it set out to achieve. What's this manga called? Oh yeah, Bakuman.
I almost said Bakugo.
But fuck the fact that that relationship is hilariously underdeveloped. But everything else about that manga is good. Go read Bakuman.
Yeah, I've heard it's good.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm calling it now. The Russian girl that he learned Russian to speak to.
Oh,
He said in the flashback that he doesn't even know her name. So I guess they just like met on the playground a few times and somehow he never learned her name, even though he learned an entire language.
well, maybe he forgot.
how could he forget? He learned a whole language and still thinks about this girl.
Yeah,
um, maybe he just felt too awkward to ask her name because it had been too long.
that
I've done
happened.
that before.
I'm kind of in a situation. I'm in a situation like that right now where I've been talking to someone for
Right.
like almost a month, and but I I just realized like a week ago that I don't know their real name. I only know their display name.
That's different though. That I've had people IRL that like I knew them for like a year. I'm like, okay,
A
don't.
year.
Yeah. There was this kid in the fifth grade that I sat on the bus with. And now I can tell you his name was Cole, but I did not learn that until after we no longer sat on the bus and talked every day.
The heck?
Well, it's like once you know them for that long, it's there's like a point where it's like, okay, it'd be really weird if I was like, oh, hey, by the way, I don't know your name after talking to you for 6 months. So I'm just gonna headcanon that happened. Yeah, my prediction was that girl is absolutely going to come back and like join the love triangle.
Oh yeah. I mean that's obvious.
I'll get more specific with it though. I'm gonna say that their Alya's relationship is they're gonna start like actually making some progress and like start flirting and maybe almost becoming a thing, and that's when she's gonna come in and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the girl, that he wants," and it's gonna throw a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
But then she's gonna okay, either she's gonna turn out to like secretly be a manipulative psychopath, or she's actually gonna be like totally rooting for them and be like, "Oh yeah, you guys are actually a great couple," so like you are feeling insecure over nothing.
It's been done.
Yeah, it's been done.
Go watch Lavina. It's better. I know a lot of people turned on Nisekoi, but go read Nisekoi. It's probably better than
But
this.
weren't you just complaining about Lavina? Weren't
Yeah,
you
no,
just saying that they No, what read an actually good manga.
no, Lavina is fucking actually great. That's one of the most popular rom-coms of all time.
No. Read Nagatoro. Nagatoro doesn't tease you like that. Their relationship actually
Well,
makes progress.
if you said that in like certain like the weeb equivalent to like boomers, I feel like you get shat on for that take for
I
saying
mean,
that
it's true that I mean like yeah, it
Nagatoro
takes
is better
them.
than Lavina.
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I'm just saying like at least like there's no teasing. Well, it's not that there's no teasing, but there's steady progress instead of like treading water for a bajillion seasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing about Lavina is that it's only 25 episodes, but um, yeah. Well, and the OVA, which makes it 28. But uh, I mean, I still think it's better than this. So go check that out,
Yeah.
or check out Nisekoi.
I mean,
Uh,
for the record, I don't have anything against this show. It was
mhm.
fine from the first episode. I would just say maybe read the manga.
I mean, my problem with it is that I was extremely bored.
Well,
So,
yeah, yeah, but that's just like a preference thing, right? Either
mhm.
if this show bores you, maybe check out the manga. Uh, and if it doesn't, then then I guess you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
But personally, we are both tiny attention span people who aren't really into this type of show to begin with. So.
Man, I have very mixed feelings about whether or not that's true because I bet if I went and watched Toradora right now, I would fucking love the shit out of Toradora. But that's maybe be because of nostalgic attachment because I watched that anime when I was a kid.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
mean, you're definitely more so into this kind of show than I am.
and it's also very possible that my attention span has gotten worse. Remember telling you that I can't even enjoy like OG Dragon Ball anymore because it's like relatively low.
That's
It's
crazy.
relatively low energy. No, I mean I don't think it's shit, but like
But
I can't.
OG Dragon Ball is not that slow. I
It's
mean,
relatively low energy compared to pretty much every Dragon Ball series that comes after it, is kind of the problem.
uh, 6 out of 10. It was fine. I don't dislike it. I feel like we kind of just shat on it for 30 minutes, but yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
Next is Elusive Samurai. How does one even describe Elusive Samurai? It's kind of hard to put into words the things that happen in this anime.
That is true. I was actually about to say I'm not even entirely sure what to even say about it, other than the fact that it's probably the first time in a long time where I was actually like 100% engaged.
Yeah. So this show is set in what do you call it? Like the old
Edo?
Japan.
Is it Edo?
Yeah, in like the Edo period.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and it
Bro, you
follows
just know that there's some fucking like weeb who's like raging like it's not the Edo period, it's actually the Shinto period or whatever the fuck.
yeah. So the main character is I believe he's 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
Tokiyuki.
Yep.
Uh and he is the son of the shogun. And his whole thing is that he's a little wiener that loves running and hiding from people. He's like really good at it.
This boy has ultra instinct. He's so good at bobbing and weaving. Well, not bobbing, specifically weaving.
There is some mad weaving in the show.
He's got ultra instinct.
I guess the shogun is like a puppet shogun. Like they show him and he's
They
just like
show him and
sit.
he's literally brain dead.
Yeah, he's
Literally.
kind of like limply laying there drooling.
Yeah.
But there's I guess an uprising happening, so they send off their samurai, and among them, I guess like the leader guy is
There's a guy called
Takauji.
Takaoji. And he's like this really well respected guy that even main character Shota is a massive fanboy of. Or maybe not
Yeah,
massive fanboy, but he very clearly holds him in like high regard.
he's really cool. He's a badass. The way they uh, like depict him is super intimidating. So
Hmm.
they like go off to war, and as this is happening, Tokiyuki runs into this very weird man.
This foreteller,
Yeah,
quote unquote.
and he is like, "Oh yeah, I am here because I knew you'd be here, and I've foreseen your future, and you're going to be a great warrior
When you're 10.
when you're 10 in 2 years." And obviously Tokiyuki is just like, wow, this man is very weird.
This guy is
And
fake as fuck.
yeah, he calls them a wait, what does he call him? He keeps calling him like a fake,
He calls him a sham something.
yeah, sham foreteller or something.
Yeah.
And he runs off. And then like shortly after, it comes out that the Kauji, I guess he turned on the army and just killed everyone? Is that what happened?
Yeah, but it also appears as though he got a bunch of samurai to join him as well.
Yeah, he flipped sides and murdered
He himself
everyone
intends to take over uh Kamakura, whatever the fucking place they live in is called.
in a very in a very crazy scene. He kills everyone that's against him.
Yeah, you see them like putting like piling heads on sticks and shit. It was very violent.
Yeah,
It was a lot more violent and graphic than you would expect. Like
it
just
was like huge whiplash for like the way the fortune teller guy was depicted was he was
mm,
like such a goofy character, and thus far it was pretty lighthearted, and then like bam,
and comedic.
severed head.
Yeah, one just falls like there's like a scene where they show like the brother kicks the ball up and right as the ball lands on the ground, it just smash cuts to a head also landing on the ground, and it's like,
That
whoa, what?
I think that shocked both of us, I think.
Yeah,
I was like, "Whoa."
yeah.
That's
I mean, for a brief second, I was like, wait, is that happening where he is? But then it smash cuts to
it
where
was
all the
just
killing
like
is
some
happening.
interesting directing. Tokiyuki is like obviously pretty broken up about everyone he knows and loves is dead, I guess. He's totally ready to just seppuku himself.
It's a time period where there's honor in death, as the
Yeah.
opening narration says.
The fortune teller guy shows back up, and he's like, "Hey, remember what I said about you being a great warrior and stuff?" And Tokiyuki is not convinced, and he's like, "Man, like, you might as well just kill me."
Well, he's one of those people who's like, I wanna die, and then the fortune teller's like, I, well,
Yeah,
okay.
he just yeets him off a cliff. He just
Yeah,
pushes him down straight into like the army of dudes murdering and pillaging.
yeah. And
And
then he's just
he's
like,
like,
it's the son of the Shogun. So they all just start trying to kill him, and then he activates his Ultra Instinct again
and
and
then
starts.
we get the craziest fucking scene of him dodging like 1,000 guys coming at him with swords. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then he jumps back into the arms of the fortune teller and is like, "Hey, I could have died."
Yeah, it's weird how like well received that attempt on his life was.
Well, maybe he's just aware that that was done to give him some
Yeah,
perspective.
he by doing that it awakened his love for life.
His
So
desire to live.
he resolves to survive. So it becomes this kind of duality of Takauji is going to take over by killing, and he's going to take over by
r-
surviving.
Running and hiding. It's
Yeah.
poetic because running and hiding and shirking responsibility is something that has plagued his family for generations, and it's seen as a weakness, but it actually turns out to be his greatest strength. I think that's something they were saying. Because even the older brother's just like, nah, fuck that. I don't know if I can do
Well,
that
the
job.
older brother is a bastard, so
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
that's the main
I was
reason.
wondering what it meant to be born in a concubine.
Yeah. A concubine is like a mistress.
Strength turned weakness. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Wait, I mean weakness turned I mean weakness turned strength, not strength
Yeah.
turned.
Starting from like the beginning, it's is this is this show CG? It's there were parts of it where it's
No, it's definitely not, but there's some shots that are. Like the first notable CG shot that I saw was when he was running through all those doors, and I think he himself was drawn in 2D, but the background
I don't
was
know. It's
3D.
like this something about the frame rate of him felt CG to me.
There was
It
also
felt
that
like
one
really good CG.
there was also that one scene with like the corpse that they went past where the CG was like pretty noticeable there when they were riding on horseback towards the end of the episode. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like a noticeable 3D model.
There was definitely a lot of stuff in this that like was clearly CG. I don't know. It was like the thing is this show has such a unique look to it that
Hmm.
it's kind of hard to tell like how much of it is just like a creative choice versus like if it's CG or something.
I mean, I will say it is a pretty good looking show.
Yeah, no, I mean it looked the dodging and the weaving
Yeah.
was out of this world. It was so cool. And like he's got like the big sleeves that they have in those old Japanese outfits and the way those sleeves like blow in the wind when he's running.
Hmm.
So cool.
And it's not that surprising because the studio that did it is Cloverworks, who actually do a lot of pretty good looking shows because they did Windbreaker and Bochi. So. Oh, and they also did Spy Family, so there you go. Which I do believe are all to be pretty good looking shows. So,
I mean, Windbreaker is was really well animated,
hmm
but the Windbreaker, like design wise, it just looks like a standard anime. And
yeah,
then you've got this that it's so
presentation and stuff.
yeah, it's the presentation of this is like so just overflowing with creativity. The way like we already mentioned the scene where like the ball flies into the air and then a
Hmm.
severed head comes back down. Or
Or
like
like the way the background changes into like old, like what do you call that type of painting?
I
Especially in
didn't
the
even notice that.
especially in the opening. I like that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, there was a just a lot of stuff. There was like the part where they did like the cinematic bars on that character's face. It's just so it's so well done. It's also impactful. And the music too. I noticed that it had like some weird ass music it was playing towards the end of the episode.
Well, it kind of did that thing that like shows like Samurai Champloo do, where it's like despite it being like a period piece, it has like some very modern like music playing. Uh,
Yeah.
it still has like music that you would expect from that time, but it has like, for the lack of a better term, beats, if you know what I mean. Oh, and also just randomly bringing this up, since we're talking about the directing, the director is a guy called Yuta Yamazaki who he did some episode directing on Dress Up Darling, but he also did some episode directing on everyone's favorite show, Wonder Egg Priority.
Oh.
Uh, uh, I mean, to be fair, say what you will about Wonder Egg's writing, but it was also a pretty good looking show too. So,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to get past like Wonder Egg was also trying to be this show is really surreal. That's I think if I had to describe it in one word, I'd say
mhm,
surreal.
yeah.
Uh, and Wonder Egg was also trying to be surreal, but Wonder Egg, I feel like it was trying a little too hard a lot of the time. Like some of the designs in that show, there's like a one of the monsters was like a teacher or something, and it just had like big old saggy uh tits hanging down.
Interesting. Oh, right. I guess you briefly mentioned like tonal whiplash. I'm not entirely sure, like, when all that bloody stuff was happening, how seriously we were supposed to take that, because they definitely didn't shy away from injecting bits and pieces of uh, humor and comedic
Yeah, that
interactions
was
between the
like the
characters.
weirdest part of the episode is when they're walking away from the scene of everyone mutilated and they bring back like the gag of the fortune teller guy being like a really bad fortune teller as this is happening.
Or even just the interaction between the two of them when they're on the cliff and like the prince is telling the fortune teller to piss off. Yeah,
Yeah. It was definitely very the tone was all over the place.
yeah, it was a little bit. I mean, I've seen worse tonal clashes, so I wasn't like too offended by that, but it was something that I noticed regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. The whiplash of going from like fairly lighthearted to how dark it got,
Hmm.
uh, it did take me out of it like maybe a little bit, but it was definitely it was definitely good. Obviously,
No, that was the first seasonal in a long time. Even out of the ones that we like, that I've liked in the past, that was the first time in a long time where I paid 100% attention.
so you'd say you liked it.
Yes, I'd say that I liked that. That was pretty solid. Incidentally, the mangaka who created, because I already had the manga for this in my plan to read, because I guess every season there's just at least one manga that I have in my plan to read that's getting an anime adaptation now. Last season it was Kaiju number 8, so I don't gotta read shit. But the mangaka who created this is also the creator of Assassination Classroom, which I have not
Oh,
read, but Yeah,
That is that's so weird. Assassination Classroom is such a
different.
silly, light-hearted show.
hmm I mean, this show isn't gonna be like super gritty or anything. I'm sure most of the time it's gonna be pretty lighthearted.
Well, I don't know. I mean, with a first episode like that, you really think it's gonna be just all like silly fun?
Well, maybe not all the time, but I get the impression off of like the opening and the fact that like I don't know, 60% of the episode was pretty. But then maybe the reason why the first half of the episode was lighthearted was to show what things were like before everything all went. So I guess it's somewhat hard to tell.
I just assume it's gonna be a similar balance for the whole show.
Yeah.
I guess like that now that like I'm thinking about it, that contrast is kind of there in Assassination Classroom. Like
hmm
it's like a fun, happy slice of life show, but they're also having to try and murder their teacher because he's gonna destroy the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can kind of see it.
I actually don't know shit about Assassination Classroom. I always
It's
thought it
pretty
was
good.
like I don't know why, but I always assumed maybe it's Danganronpa-esque, but I don't know much about Danganronpa either.
Nah, nah.
Yeah.
It's Assassination Classroom is it. I feel like it's an example of a show that is hard carried by an excellent premise. It's like kind of the cast is not that strong, but the premise is just so good. But yeah, that I mean that instills some confidence in this because I like Assassination Classroom.
Yeah. It has a mangaka who's proved himself.
Because I was gonna say like Wonder Egg as an example of a show that
Hmm.
had that only the first episode is good. I know there are people who are like, oh, it falls off like halfway through, like the first or like it's good until the last episode, and everything else is like a banger.
Wow.
Uh,
Then that's lucky me then, because I don't know if the podcast existed at this point, but I do know that
no, no,
I've
because I
only
remember I watched Wonder Egg because content covered it.
oh, that's probably why I watched it too. Because I only watched one episode of that as
Yeah.
well. And it was always one of those shows I wanted to get back to, but just never did.
Yeah. So people say like, "Oh yeah, like it fell off right at the end or something." I'm of the opinion that it was like a steep decline from episode 1.
Damn. Unfortunate.
So I was going to say like, well, hopefully this since we only watched one episode of this, hopefully
hmm
this isn't going to be like that. But if it's by the Assassination Classroom
It gives you a
mangaka,
bit of hope.
yeah, I have some faith in him as an author. So
Oh, that's good. This is definitely a show that I will be watching. It was pretty solid.
very curious to see where it goes. I think I probably didn't enjoy it as much as you. It's like not super my type of thing. This feels like the kind of show that like if you're a really seasoned anime viewer, you're going to love the shit out of this.
Yeah.
It's that certain brand of weird that really experienced viewers just love. And it's maybe a little bit less accessible to someone who's like newer to anime.
Mm, maybe. I can see like I feel like this show has like similar appeal to like your shonens and your stuff like that. I feel like if you're like a casual anime fan, you probably could get into this.
I think anyone could enjoy this, but I'm just saying like there's a weird edge to it that might make it like a little bit less easy to get into for someone who's like a less seasoned anime viewer.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not to say like you shouldn't watch it if you're
Mhm.
new because it is great.
Oh yeah, I actually wanted to say that so whenever these seasonals come up, there's usually every now and then that you'll have shows that are like period pieces from like old time Japan. And like a lot of the time I end up putting these in my plan to watch, but I never really get around to watching them because they don't seem like the type of shows that could hold my attention for very long. but I have always had like a passing interest in the aesthetic of shows that take place in this time period. And I do think this is the kind of show that would probably the kind of show that I can actually watch that takes place in this time period.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my thing is like I'm not really into to shows that are too grounded.
yeah,
Like
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
if we're talking about like a grounded historical drama, for whatever reason in my brain, all I can think is like, oh, well, like it already happened and like they're dead and like they didn't even have like iPhones, so like it's just not very consequential to me.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know how grounded in like real history this is.
that's actually what I was wondering. Is this like somewhat based on something that actually happened, or like an actual like Japanese folk folk tale? Is that what the term I'm looking for? But I didn't look into that, so I'm not entirely sure.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was it was fantastical enough. I generally prefer fantasy, but it was fantastical enough and like
Mhm.
well written enough that I am still interested in it.
Pretty much same. My ADHD can handle this.
Give this like an 8, I think.
That's pretty
But
good.
it'd really depend where they take it.
I am intrigued.
And next is my dear friend Nokotan. This isn't really the kind of show you can really summarize, but do you want to summarize the basic premise, Coco?
This is one of those shows. This is one of those shows that's reminded me. Sometimes it's easy to forget in spite of how often we do these seasonal discharges. This is one of those shows that kind of reminded me of how autistic anime can get. Uh, it's well, where to even begin? So you have this girl whose name I didn't get, a delinquent girl. Or she
uh,
used to be a delinquent, and she's
yeah,
like,
she's like she make it's weird because she is not a delinquent anymore, but the way she describes it is like she's secretly a delinquent undercover.
well, it's like her personality hasn't changed
Yeah,
internally, so
Torako,
she's kind of like
Torako.
she's kind of performing it a little bit. She's become like an honor student, basically gone out of her way to like present herself as the perfect girl, as the narrator says in the show. Yeah, there's a fair bit of narration in this, and she comes across the titular character, uh,
A creature, a deer to be more specific.
an anthro deer. Well, not really an anthro deer because
She's just an anime girl with deer horns. I mean, Toriko even says like, "Well, male deer have horns, so is she like some kind of cryptid?"
well, it's funny that you bring that up because remember how before we watched this, I was talking about how I heard that this show is kind of transcore.
So you think that Nokotan is a trans deer?
That's how people on trans Twitter decided to interpret it. Uh,
Fair enough.
because there's a scene where they literally talk about how it's weird for her to be a girl deer that has antlers.
Sure.
So so they decided to interpret it that way. And listen, man, to each their own. I was assuming before going into it that maybe there might have been a smidge more to latch onto than that, but that's fair.
I mean, she's just a creature. This show is very like aesthetically, it appeals very much to a certain type of queer anime fan.
Oh man, do you think this show will be a Yuri bait?
No, and that's not really what I meant. Although they did have they did do a little bit of that in this first episode.
Yeah, the scene where uh what was the name? Blonde girl takes Nokotan
Toriko.
to Toriko takes Nokotan to the student council room and they start playing
She
like
pins her
TV
against the
music.
wall.
And also Nokotan's like, "Ooh, what'd you bring me here for?" And then she gets all flustered because
Yeah.
she's thinking about scissoring. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, Nokotan is her whole personality is just that she's a troll. She solely exists to say whatever will make Toriko the most uncomfortable in that moment.
But do you think it's intentional, or do you think she's just really dumb, like SpongeBob?
I feel like it's one of those things where it's a little bit ambiguous. It's like maybe it's a little bit of both, but you can't really tell where the line is.
Yeah, that's probably the point.
Yeah.
To be honest, I was actually like wondering, maybe this is me being autistic, but I was like, wait, is this girl just a LARP, or is this like an actual deer girl? Is it diegetic that she has these really bad CGI deers following her everywhere she goes?
This show is also surreal in a very different way from Elusive Samurai.
Yeah.
That that was probably the funniest part of the episode when they just would like slow-mo and start playing this like weird chanting like African music or
I
something.
found that was really funny. Especially the scene where like she walks through the door and like the
That yeah.
shrapnel hits them and they don't even react
Yeah,
to the
just
fact.
slow motion, everyone getting hit by shards of glass.
Yeah, and they're all bleeding. Toriko is basically like this straight man in this whole world.
She's the only person who is self-aware about how weird all this is, and everyone else just is like, see, it's like they're under some kind of spell. They simply do not react.
No one else questions the sheer absurdity of there being a dear girl
Yeah.
who it's and I guess the plot is that they've started a deer club together, a club about taking care of deers, or the deer, of
Yeah.
course, being the deer girl.
I mean, this is also kind of a genre of comedy anime, or
Hmm.
even really just comedy in general, where there's just one absurd character and the absurd character kind of just takes over the main character's life.
It's like a gag anime or something.
It's definitely a gag anime. There wasn't really like a narrative arc in the first episode. They kind of just they introduced Nokotan and then they did gags for I guess there was a little bit of progression, but there wasn't
Yeah,
like
the relationship between the two of them. She's like the Toriko is like, I want literally nothing to do with this girl. And then in the end, she's just like, well, it seems like there's no way for me to avoid this girl. So,
and she strokes her hair, which also low key kind of gay.
and then the episode ends on a cliffhanger of some other girl staring really angrily and wanting beef with,
A very scary monster girl thing.
yes, wanting beef with Nokatan.
I couldn't tell if that was diegetic or not. Like if she's actually a monster or if that's just like, oh, she's
She's
an
pissed.
angry.
Yeah, like typical anime exaggerated face expression.
Yeah, like if this was like a different show, I would just assume that was like, oh, she's like an angry anime girl making the sharp teeth expression. But in this,
Oh, she's gonna be the natural predator to Nokotan. She's gonna be like Wolf
oh,
Girl.
I would actually like that because that was probably my least favorite thing about this first episode is
Hmm.
it feels a little bit too malicious. Like Nokotan is kind of just trolling Toriko and at first I was like, "Oh, maybe like the point is that she deserves it because she's like secretly an evil delinquent." But she really is just a good person and Nokotan is just fucking with her for no reason.
Well, I don't know if I'd say she's a straight up good person because at the start of the episode, she was like totally willing to just like leave Nokotan up there on the fucking whatever you call him. Because she's like, that's got nothing to do with me. Um, I'm leaving.
Well, I think I think she only went to that after she saw how fucking weird Nokotan was, and she immediately realized that this deer was bad news.
And then she gets emotionally manipulated by Nokotan into helping her get down. Because Nokotan's just like, well, if you leave, and I die up here, this is the route that you take to go to school every morning, so you'll pass through here every day.
They cut to her like looking at the like shrine for Nokotan.
Yeah. So then she's just like, oh, fine, I'll help you down, you son of a bitch. It was pretty funny.
My favorite part was definitely, like we said, the more absurd parts of it when they kind of just get batshit. And I think like the more grounded comedy was the less funny for me. So I'm hopeful in them introducing more characters, it'll get a little bit more hectic. But yeah, just from the first episode, I give it like a strong 6. But I could see it going up for me if it gets a little bit more wild.
I mean, I don't really see this as the type of show that I would continue watching, but I was mildly entertained by the first episode.
I would watch like another episode or two just to see if it gets better.
hmm
But yeah, I agree. If it stays like this, I probably wouldn't watch the whole thing. It was yeah, I agree. It was mildly entertaining.
Yeah,
It got some some chuckles out of me. It made me breathe air out of my nose a few times.
pretty much same.
All right, Coco, hit us with the staff. I know you want to.
What? Oh, I looked up the director of this show, and his name is Masahiko Uta.
Oh,
And
that actually that remind this would have been a good segue. I should have just said this. The art style kind of reminds me a little bit of Haruhi.
uh,
Like the way they draw the eyes, they're so shiny, like an older anime, like an early 2000s anime.
yeah. So the director has worked on some shows that I'm sure people are familiar with, like Umaru-chan and To Love Ru. He also worked on Mega Man NT Warrior, if anyone even remembers that. The Battle Network games, they had an anime
Oh,
adaptation. It's pretty neat.
huh.
Um, yeah. Um, but literally everything else that this guy has worked on since To Love Ru is literally just lolly shit. Like this guy does not direct anything else. He just directs lolly shows. Oh, and he works for Studio Wit. I guess whenever Studio Wit wants to do like a lolly show, they're just like, get Uta on the fucking phone. But I'm just saying that's a little bit sussy, okay? When your entire discography, is that the word, of work
Yeah.
is just lolly shit.
You
Listen,
definitely have to be in a certain headspace to
yeah,
for that to be the only thing you want to. But that's some dedication.
yeah. Check the hard drives. Check the fucking hard drives. Listen, I admire this guy's dedication, okay? It's just like I love lollies, and this is what I'm gonna be directing for the rest of my life until I die. I
And
mean,
deer, apparently. Beautiful, ugly CG deer.
I mean, the good thing with that is because of the type of show that this is, they can actually get away with that
Yeah.
as a
No,
joke.
the C it was infinitely more funny because they were CG. I'm very
Yeah,
glad they did that.
yeah. Like they can get away with that as like a joke.
Every time the CG deer came on screen, I my eyes lit up a little bit.
Yeah. It's just really funny though, because going back to the director, because like if you look at his profile on AniList, from like the 90s up until like the early like 2010s, it's like a pretty diverse range of shows that he's working on. And then you get to To Love Ru, which is probably like oh, that's 2008. The last like not fully lolly show that he worked on. And then everything after that, everything after 2008 that he worked on as like a director or storyboard artist or episode director are just lolly shows. Holy shit.
Okay, well I can tell you one of three things happened. One, he started doing those shows and it just became like a typecasting thing, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we got to get the lolly guy on this because he's like good at drawing lollies."
Yeah.
Two, he worked on a lolly show and he like fell down the rabbit hole and he was like, "This is my life now. I love lollies." Or three, he was a true believer from the beginning and he was always into it, and
He was hiding his power level.
he yeah, he just had to like get to the level that they would let him do that for every show.
Just according to Keikaku, he's finally made it.
Yes. Oh, by the way, you know what? You know what Nokotan reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of like the Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck dynamic.
I can see that. I was thinking SpongeBob and Squidward.
A little bit. But the Nokotan, she's a little bit of a troll. SpongeBob isn't quite as much of like when SpongeBob does it, it's definitely not on purpose.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. Anyway, enough of that garbage. It's time to talk about the goat, Wistoria's wand and
Harry
sword.
Potter if Voldemort didn't attack him and he couldn't use magic.
Oh my god, this show is such a banger. You know, for all this time, ever since I saw Reign of the Seven Spellblades, I've just, been craving another truly great anime. And finally, we have another show that can live up to the greatness.
I think this is better than Reign of the Seven Spellblades.
I agree, actually. It's, well, I mean, Reign of the Seven Spellblades was bad in a kind of entertaining way, though.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a little bit more generic. It also looks
Oh,
it's kind of
oh,
got like a similar visual style, but just a much better version of it.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say they both very clearly come from the school of anime that is obviously influenced and or inspired either directly by Harry Potter or something else that is Harry Potter influenced. I was actually going to say that this feels, at least in terms of the character design, this feels the less generic to me than
Yeah, that's true.
Reign of the
The
Seven Spellblades.
characters don't look super generic. That I'll give them that. So the premise, we kind of skipped around a little bit. I was just so excited to get into my new favorite anime. The premise of this is, yeah, the main character is going to Hogwarts, but he can't use magic. But
which
he's
which has been done
Yeah,
multiple times.
but he's like a really banging sword fighter. So he's like trying to pass his classes without magic, and everyone hates him.
It's like familiar of Zero, where instead of the person who can't do magic summoning someone who's good at fighting with swords, they themselves are the good swordsmen.
Well, I was just thinking about Marshall since we watched Marshall not
Yeah,
that long ago.
yeah, there's
Uh,
Marshall too.
and yeah, Marshall infinitely better than this. Not even in the same universe.
They're two different types of shows. That's like kind of like more comedic and uh well, I don't want to say gag-esque, but probably a little bit.
But
Whereas this is this
take all of that out. Take all of the jokes out of Marshall. I still think it's a way better show than this one because
hmm
Mosh is like the way he carries himself is so much better because so like halfway through this episode when we like get the reveal that the MC is actually like super strong, just not with magic. He saves his bully from a big old monster. Uh and
Well, that's pretty much where it ends. It's like, oh yeah, he's actually been secretly badass at sword fighting this whole time, which the other teacher, Snape, doesn't like because oh my God, a guy who's like more capable than mages, and mages are like the cream of the crop in this society. They're like, you
the
know,
Snape in this is even more brazen than the real Snape.
what
He
what what was the top class of mages called? Magia Vanders?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So like mages are like really up there in this society. And obviously there's like a bit of elitism there, especially with red-haired Malfoy, who's just like,
He red-haired Malfoy was his mouth was literally bleeding from gritting his teeth so hard when he got
at the fact
saved.
that he just got saved by a guy who doesn't use magic.
Yeah.
Because he's anti non-magicians being at Hogwarts. So
Oh, but
he,
what I was gonna say about the sword fight
hmm
is I got a little bit disappointed because when the monster showed up, that was like the first time I woke up a little bit in this episode and was like, oh, this is actually like something potentially interesting that is happening in the plot. And I thought this was gonna be like his awakening or something. Like he was gonna go in there and be like almost getting killed against this monster, and it was going to cause him to have like some sort of breakthrough and show that he actually has like the potential to make it just with the sword or something. And
hmm
instead he comes in, he's just roasting the demon guy.
He's just roasting it, and he also has Sharingan, where
Oh yeah.
he has the fucking ability to be able to like predict his opponent's moves after they've done the move against them once. So like to be clear, like the main character is a little bit OP,
Yeah.
just a tiny bit.
So I was pretty disappointed when that came out. And then I realized, well, like, in Marshall, Mosh is pretty OP too. Like
hmm
he's not infallible, but for like the pretty it's not till pretty far in that Mosh runs into anyone that he can't just one shot basically. And in Marshall, it's epic when he does that. You're like, "Oh my god, let's fucking go!"
That's because
Mosh.
the way that he bypasses obstacles tends to be pretty creative.
Yeah,
Instead of
that's
being
true.
instead of just being like, yeah, so now I'm just gonna flex on this, you know?
But it's just I feel like it's something about the presentation too, though. Like I definitely agree that's a huge part of it. But in Marshall, they've got like the hip hop and stuff that's playing, and it's
hmm
just whenever they're so good at making stuff feel hype in that anime. And in this, it kind of just plays like the standard inspirational
Yeah.
orchestral music as he's slowly killing this monster with his sword. And
hmm
it's just a little bit forgettable, you know?
Yeah. So we haven't fully gone over the plot yet. And the
I
plot,
don't know. I mean, does it really matter that much? Like
the main, well, the weird thing about this show is that it kind of feels like a series of tropes in a
yeah,
way that have been put together into a
you're
show.
so right. I was kind of thinking that. It's like that's why I was like laughing while we were watching this.
Because you've got the guy in magic school who can't do magic. You've got the childhood friend that he made the promise with. You've got, you
Everyone
got your
like
tower.
every second they were on screen, they were like acting out cliches. Like a good chunk of this first episode was just the main character like reaching his hand out to the sky and clenching his fist and being like, I'm gonna be the strongest. I'm gonna be the best. The
Yeah,
sky is so blue. Like he was just listing off.
his goal is to get to the top of the tower where his childhood friend is because his childhood friend was like a prodigy or
It's a
something.
bit of a kaiju number 8. He
Yeah,
got left behind as a little wiener loser while the childhood
yeah.
friend girl became a badass.
And like it's I guess it's somewhat structured like Kill la Kill where like the better you are, the higher up the tower you live and the more status you have
Oh, I
or
kind of
something.
missed that. I just
Yeah,
assumed it was like a Towermon
because the
they
girl
pulled
lives
it
at the
on that.
top of the tower. She's actually one of the youngest Vanders there ever has been. So she's basically reached like the top, and he wants to get there as well. And that's what I mean. Is just like there's just like a bunch of stuff going on here. There's like I'll take this from that anime and put it there, and I'll take this from that other anime and I'll put it there, and I'll take, and I mean that happens with anime a lot. That is one thing that people criticize anime for is how self-influencing it can be. But like this is more blatant than it usually is, I think.
You know, my complaint about this, I think, actually is pretty similar to Reign of the Seven Spellblades, which is that I could see reading the book, the light novel of this. I guarantee this is a light novel
Oh
adaptation.
no, it's a manga. There
Really?
there's no
Is
light novel.
there's no? Oh my God. Well, in
Yeah.
that case, it's shit. I was gonna say like I could see like reading the book and like oh that's why like they left out all this world building and details and it feels more natural in book form. But if this is just like a one-to-one manga adaptation, fuck that. This
Yeah.
was dog shit.
Well, you never know, because one thing I learned from watching Death Note is that even anime adaptations can cut out a lot of shit. So,
Yeah.
uh, you never know for sure. But at the very least, I don't know. I'll say story was meh, but I mean, I did like the visuals. I thought the
Why
anime,
why
yeah,
did this look so good?
I thought the animation was pretty good. In fact,
It looked so good. It was almost like over animated where like any time there's a character on screen, they're moving around in a very three-dimensional way.
yeah, there's that. I also liked how the lighting is done. It felt like realistic. You know how they do like the whole light reflecting off the skin in
Yeah,
like
well they did the bloom and they did the Netflix camera where it like blurs a little bit around the edges.
yeah. Something about the animation in this show. It reminded me a tiny bit like with the lighting and stuff. It reminded me of JJK. And
Uh
I actually thought it would have been done by that studio, but it's not. It's actually
what
done.
you thought that this was a Mappa
I mean,
joint?
it reminded me of, well, it reminded me of
No
JJK
shot.
at
Mappa
least.
would not make this.
It reminded me of JJK at least. And you know, I didn't think about it until I looked at the director works. But I guess CSM is a pretty decent comparison as well. I'm talking specifically, not just like the animation in general. I'm talking specifically about like how they color the lighting reflecting off of the character's skin and stuff like that. Like not, it's a weird artist
I don't know.
autistic
I don't
thing.
see it.
It's a weird artist autistic thing. That's what I was thinking of. Um, but this studio that worked on it is actually just some studio I've never heard of called Studio Actors.
Honestly, it would not have surprised me if this was the Reign of the Seven Spellblade studio and they just like got better. Because it really does. That is like the closest
Was that
comparison
not
to me.
was that not A1?
No shot. What was it? There's no
Uh,
way.
I'm not sure. Oh, it was JC staff.
Uh,
The One Punch Man people.
but what I remembered about Reign of the Seven Spellblades is it looked like it wanted to be a movie to me, and I got the exact same vibe out of this show. It was just much better execution.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got that vibe too. Not that familiar with Actus. All they've done is Girls und Panzer. That's literally it.
Oh well, that's a. I mean, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular show. but like it seems like that's literally all they do, like every year.
Man, life is not fair. They needed to trade with the studio that did Overweight Elf.
Shit, what studio was that? I forgot.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if if Overweight Elf looked like this?
That would be great. Actually, I think the studio that really should tackle that show should be the people that did Onimai.
I agree.
That seems like a pretty good combination.
But those
But
those people are all pedophiles. They can't stand the thought of a thick woman.
true.
That's actually not true. There's a bunch of big booba girls in Onimai. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they should have done that. They should pick it up for season two.
As far as notable shows that the director has worked on, well, I mean, like I mentioned before, he worked on Chainsaw Man. He also worked on JJK and Frieren, which I have not seen. But you know what? Well, he worked on those shows as key animators too. So maybe he's the reason why you got that super three-dimensional
Man,
movement in
is
this
this like a
show.
super popular manga or something? Why is this so stacked?
Yeah, most of the people who've read it on AniList have given it an 8 out of 10, or like that's the highest score distribution on AniList.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was just a really rough start and it turns out to be a huge banger.
Well, it seems like this genre of manga is pretty popular because we've been seeing a little bit of an uptick in shows like this recently. With this show, Reign of the Seven Spellblades,
I mean,
Marshall,
just
etc.
looking at the synopsis on paper, it sounds like it'd be my shit. But
Hmm.
then we watched it and
I mean, I actually put my name on this show because I was like, well, because I think we're gonna skip this show, and then I put my name on it because I was like, oh, well, this seems like something Arlen would want to watch, so fuck it.
so you did it for me. You fool.
It's time for me to go back to approaching how I select shows selfishly.
So yeah, you don't need to worry about that.
Well, anyways, all that to say, I didn't think this show was terrible. I thought it was okay. And to be honest, depending on how bored I am, I could probably see myself watching more of it, maybe.
That is sad.
Nah,
Please watch Marshall or something instead, Coco.
I'm placing it higher than, I mean, I think I watched 2 episodes of Seven Spellblades because that's when we were doing the old format, but
Please just watch
I'd
Marshall,
place
Coco.
this over Seven Spellblades. That show, Seven Spellblades actually pissed me off, so
I don't know. I think I might prefer Seven Spellblades just because that was like so dumb.
yeah, the
This was not
so bad it's
dumb.
good, but this is just like painfully mid.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think I'd give this like a 4 out of 10. I'm pretty sure I ironically gave Seven Spellblades a 10 and actually gave it
Uh,
like a 4. But yeah, I
yeah.
can't even ironically rate this high. This is a 4 out of 10.
Damn. Poor Harry.
All right. The final show we're going to be talking about is Pseudo Harem.
More like sleeper Harry.
Pseudo Harem is yet another show that doesn't really have a plot that can be summarized.
It's another girl gimmick show.
Yeah, yeah. There's just this dude that's in theater club, and then a girl joins theater club, and this girl is a really good actor, and they're super into each other. So she like starts acting as various.
She becomes his pseudo harem. She plays the part of all the harem tropes. The tsundere, the kudere,
Yeah,
the delinquent.
they're kind of flirting, and he like brings up that it's his dream to have his own harem, and she responds by just starting to play the archetypes of random harem members.
Yes. And then they repeat that joke multiple times throughout the episode.
Yeah, it's just the whole episode is pretty much just them doing school stuff and kind of flirting.
And then occasionally bringing that joke back. And all I have to say is, I could never trust a person that's that good at doing different personalities ever in my entire life. I certainly would not want this girl as my girlfriend because I would not know when she's being real.
I don't know. I felt like she kind of wears her emotions on her sleeve. Like, yeah, she's a really good actor, but as soon as she like actually has a strong emotion, she breaks character.
Yeah,
Or even like when she's acting it, she still displays the emotion just as the character.
like when they were taking the pictures and she couldn't maintain the face and character for when he was taking pictures of her.
But even when she's like acting as like the cool girl, she still expresses the same emotions just as the cool girl would.
I guess that's true. But generally speaking, I'd be like, I'm gonna keep my eye on you because you're kind of sus. You're like the imposter. Well, one thing I actually did want to talk about was the show's visuals, and I have to say, I'm not a fan. It really gave me strong person learning, just learned and just sort of became intermediate at drawing anime vibes, which is kind of interesting because I'm really trying to think if there's any shows so far that I really thought the visuals were like super weak. I don't want to make the claim that this was the strongest season because I mean it wasn't, but I felt like we've been consistently okay up until now, and I would say that this was a weak finish because
Uh,
I'm not the biggest fan of the way the characters are drawn in this.
I think it looks fine.
It kind of gives me like a similar vibes of like trying to look like which one is it? Is it the Russian girl show? And like that one is better drawn than this one, in my opinion.
I felt like, I mean, yeah, that show is definitely better animated at the very least.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I thought they did a good job, like portraying all her different like characters, making them distinct through her expressions. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah. I'm more so just mean like I don't know how to describe it, like in like a technical sense. Like if
Just
you
like
look
the designs, or
like the designs,
oh, that does remind
the way
me.
the faces are drawn, etc.
Okay, you're right. That does remind me. The guys kind of ugly. They
Yeah.
give all the guys like double bags under their eyes for some reason.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought with the main character they were doing that, or the guy character they were doing that because maybe he just has a really bad sleeping habits and they were trying to communicate something about his character. I didn't notice that they'd done that with all the male characters.
Yeah, all the guys had bags under their eyes.
That is an interesting choice to make.
It's weird because like the guy characters, they look totally fine from the side, and then they turn their head to the camera and they just look really fucked up.
It's weirder that I feel this way about the animation because I actually looked up the director and like every other show that he's worked on is like a really good looking show. Like he worked on okay, well I mean he didn't animate on Attack on Titan, but he was the animation director on Great Pretender. What was the other? He did key animation on Mob. Those are all pretty good looking shows. So I'm just sort of a little bit perplexed. Maybe it's a character design thing. Maybe it's a consequence of trying to look like the manga. I don't know what the manga looks like. So sometimes if
Well,
like
we did say we wanted more anime that looked like the manga.
yeah, but it's a very weird thing because if the manga, I do want more anime to have accurate art styles. Like I don't want like weird, we're just gonna A1 solo leveling. But at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword because if I don't know what the manga looks like, but if the manga like basically I'm trying to imagine, I don't know if you've heard of this manga, but there's this one like battle shonen called like lollipop something, and it's like a girl that fights with like a giant lollipop.
Wow, that sounds sick.
Well, unfortunately, it got canceled because it wasn't that popular
No!
with the Shonen Jump audience. But it really gave me like entry level mangaka artist vibes, like the art wasn't that great. And that's probably one of those few instances where changing the art style a little bit to make it better if it were to get an anime adaptation would be totally okay. Uh, and once again, not sure what the manga for this looks like, but if it does happen that it doesn't look that great, they probably should have taken liberties here too, but I can't say so.
I think you're just overreacting. I don't think the art is bad at all. Just looks fine.
Yeah.
Like okay anime art. But yeah, no, I mean, if it came down to like watching this or Alya-san, I would watch this every time because this is like a pretty healthy relationship versus a pretty toxic relationship in that show.
Yeah.
This is like the healthy version of what Alia is doing. Alia is like venting her feelings by saying it in a way the guy, well, supposedly can't understand, but he can. Uh,
Yeah.
versus this is like she's using her characters to express her feelings, and I think they're both clear on that. It's just like good, healthy communication.
And acting is an art, and art is about self-expression. So there you go.
It's funny because going into this, I thought it was gonna be like super fucked up, like
Well, I was expecting it to be incredibly degenerate.
yeah. Well, on paper, it sounds like, for one, I thought he like hired her or something, but I guess he didn't. So I thought this
Oh,
was gonna be
if there
like,
was gonna be like some rent-a-girlfriend type.
yeah, I thought he was gonna be like, take the money, woman, and be my hair, you know?
Well, I thought it was going to be a harem show where he gets a bunch of girls in the drama club he's in to pretend to be to
Oh
to
no, well, I read the synopsis, so
to
I
be
knew.
to pretend to be his harem, and it was going to be some incredibly degenerate show. But it's actually one girl that's the harem, and it's actually pretty wholesome, if not just a little bit boring.
I really didn't think it was that boring. It got some chuckles out of me. I mean, I probably wouldn't watch more, but yeah, it was fine. And it, like, in terms of wholesomeness, I'd say this is like way up there in terms of this type of anime.
Hmm.
Like almost always, even when it's like quote unquote wholesome, there's always like some like messed up element to it just because they're like following the anime tropes.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was worried about is like it'd be kind of messed up if it's like, oh, he likes me for the characters, but he doesn't like the real me. But actually, like the MC of this pretty clearly likes her,
Hmm.
and he like outright expresses that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just good vibes.
You know they're gonna have a wild time in the sack. Oh, now it's time for the kudere to start moaning and doing dirty talk. Now it's time for the tsundere to start doing dirty talk. Oh, you know what? I think I prefer when the delinquent girl does dirty talk. You do dirty talk instead.
Do you think they do that in like the manga? They moved really fast. Like it could be that the whole show is just going to be like them in this stage, but they like they're so clearly into each other. And we're kind of past the point that either of them could be like, "Oh, but does he really like me?"
Oh man, you are underestimating the anime rom-com genre,
Yeah.
dude.
I mean, they could, but it'd
Anime
be
rom-coms, anime rom-coms will literally have like a character straight up like the two characters just tell each other that they want to jump each other's bones, and somehow they still won't be dating and will
well,
have like a serious
I'm not
relationship.
doubting that they could just continue to not date while flirting all the time. I'm
Hmm.
just saying I can't see them not dating because they're like, oh, well, I don't think she really likes me.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more like they just kind of tread water and don't go anywhere with it.
I don't want to get into a relationship because what will happen to our friendship if
Yeah,
I
I
lose
don't
you?
think that's gonna happen.
If I lose you as a partner, that means I'll also not have you as a friend.
Never, never again. There was so much progress though in this first episode that if they were gonna go the route of like having a relationship that progresses, it feels like we've made so much ground already. I could see them like actually becoming a couple and stuff.
But I definitely do not think that they're gonna have them dirty roleplay. I don't think that's gonna be a thing. But it'll definitely be a thing in the dojins.
I don't know. It could happen. Like we said, anime is getting a little bit more willing to be a little bit racy, a little bit controversial.
That's true. They're like, wait a minute. What if instead of making anime for teenagers, we actually made them for adults? And I already know that's a thing before some fucking seinen nerd fucking writes an angry comment like, actually, the seinen genre is a thing.
I mean, do teenagers really like that kind of thing either? I feel like I hated love triangles already when I was a teenager.
No, I'm talking about how tame, like,
Oh yeah.
stuff that
What?
really
I
feels
mean,
like oh, the
you think
cleavage.
you
That
think
seems like
teenagers don't know about? Oh, right, we've had this discussion that I think maybe you like quoted Digi saying this, but that like them actually doing real stuff isn't relatable to a teenage audience, who most of which are
uh
probably virgins.
I'm not entirely sure that that's a thing that Digi said, but I do know that Digi said that um the reason why they have characters never go super far is because teenagers themselves are also still pretty anxious about the actual concept of sex,
Yeah.
which, I mean, if we're being real, depends on the teenager. But
But I'd say most teenage, especially the kind that are going to be reading shonen
yeah,
manga.
so like, to make it realistic and relatable, they never have the characters go too far. They just have the characters leer, which is probably what some teenage boys actually do. So once you like watch your first like actual porno, you can't go back to ecchi anime. So
And
anyway,
yet, we just watched an ecchi anime, and it was the best show of the season, baby.
true. Everybody go on AniList and give Elf-san 10 out of 10s.
Anyway, I give this like a six, strong six. Been a lot of sixes this season, but you know,
This was definitely the season of all time.
I love these two together. I'm rooting for them, but I'm probably not going to
Yes,
watch more. Anyway, what did you think of this season, Coco?
it was definitely a season. Man, following last season, this is it's like the anime industry was just like, man, we sure put out some decent shows last season, so
It just lined up
it
in such a way that there's like I guess a 50-50 chance of a show being shit or amazing. And
yeah,
just this time, the distribution lined up so that all the shit shows were in one season and all the good shows were in the other season.
I liked Elusive Samurai and uh well, to be honest, if I do continue with plus sized elf, I'm probably just gonna read the manga, to be honest. But I think that's probably it,
Yeah, I agree.
which is something.
Elusive Samurai is the only one I'm like definitely gonna watch more of.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll watch another episode or two of Deer.
Oh yeah, Deer was kind of funny,
Yeah.
but overall, it was a pretty weak season.
Part of the problem was that it was so many like slice of lifey shows.
And my attention span cannot handle that.
To be fair, this stuff comes out in every season, I feel like. It's just that we usually skip it because there's other more interesting stuff to check out.
Hmm.
But there wasn't this season. So we had to resort to talking about this stuff instead.
I hope the next season is a better season. In fact, you know what? As unlikely as this is, I think we might have to start considering that if a season if a season is looking weak, maybe we can consider being like, okay, this season's looking weak. Let's add some returners here. Because holy moly.
But then you would have had to like watch all of Oshinoko season 1.
Nah. We do Tower of God season 2.
Oh
That's a,
yeah.
that's a show I've seen.
I guess if there's a season this week again, we can consider it. Nah, here's the thing. Here's
Hopefully
the
that
thing.
doesn't happen.
If we had simply watched A Journey Through Another World Raising Kids While Adventuring, our thoughts would have totally changed on this season. But because we're closed-minded, we didn't even give it a chance.
Oh man, you were actually right that Alya-san is actually the most popular show this season.
Yeah.
I hate all of you! Video game yourself. No, I'm kidding.
I really think Pseudo Harem deserves. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But obvious. Well, wait. A loop. No! No, Wistoria is above Elusive Samurai.
Well, I'm looking on the Annie list and Elusive. Oh, this is just popular in general, not popular this season. But popular in general, Elusive Samurai doesn't even crack the top 10. But Dear Friend does.
Oh, this is so bullshit. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about this, but apparently there was like some controversy uh around the Deer show, like the promotional campaign they did for it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a tweet from Kiko about this on Twitter. That it was
Yeah.
like that apparently they were just like mass sending out emails to basically try and like trick people into promoting it for free or something.
Oh, they tried to astroturf it.
Yeah, basically.
That's crazy. Man, even if I sort by most popular this season, Elusive Samurai still doesn't crack the top 10. Suicide Squad is above Elusive Samurai. Nokotan is. Pseudo Harem is. Wistoria.
That's so upsetting.
Fucking hell. I guess not that many people are into Elusive Samurai. They saw all those Japanese guys pedo posting about the main character and they're like, nah.
We need to spread the good word.
Yeah.
That is not fair.
It's literally Weave Nation, the anime, and people love Weave Nation. So it's actually funny because if you did promote it as Weave Nation, the anime, the amount of people you'd get to watch this is actually crazy on Twitter,
It's
especially
time
especially
to
Black Twitter.
it's time to take to the front lines and get posting, Coco.
Yes, everybody posts clips from this show, and when you do, post clips of him dodging people, and then put hashtag Weave Nation. 4 out of 10 season. Holy shit. Never,
I'd say
never
five
again.
5 out of 10 season. Mid
Go
mid season, as you would say.
go watch Windbreakers and go watch Kaiju number 8 if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm still not done with all the shows from last season. But
Mhm.
let me just put out there that Windbreaker absolutely did pick up, and all my concerns were totally unfounded. It's great.
Yeah,
And the same goes for pretty much everything else. It all turned out to be good that I watched.
was that it?
Yeah, I'd say so. You can find me on TikTok. I've got a manhwa review series that I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even be promoting it. It's dead. The manhwa review series is dead. I'm just gonna do like a big YouTube video. My YouTube is in the description, so sub to me to see that whenever it comes out. I also have a comic called Big Billy's Adventure Everywhere at bigbilliesadventureeverywhere.xyz. There might be more of that coming out soonish. What
Yeah.
of you, Coco?
Well, you can find me, well, I just link everything in my link tree, but you can find me on YouTube at Tamika Draws, on Twitter at Tamika Draws, and on Para, at I think it's either Tamika Draws or Tamika Likes to Draw. And I'm sure there's other stuff, but it's in my link tree. Lol.
Well, I think that's it. Everyone say bye.
But
Bye.